Welcome to Venture the World of Small Business and Big Ideas. We welcome magazine magnate and niche media founder and CEO Jason Binn to the program.
It's been a rough time for the glossy biz. There have been big closures like Condé Nast's portfolio, restructurings at major shops like Newsweek, and magazines like Blender moving their enterprise online. It's rare to find a publisher where it's still business as usual. Magazine magnate Jason Binn's novel approach to the media game is no industry secret. In 1993, he co-founded Ocean Drive magazine. He started Niche Media 5 years later and made his first acquisition, Hamptons Magazine. By the time he launched his second title, Gotham, his business model had been finely tuned. Niche Media's luxury magazines covered the very rich, where they live and where they play.
There isn't a morning that goes by that my husband and I don't pinch ourselves.
His revenues don't rely on subscription because Binn gives his magazines away for free. The catch, it's to people who can afford them. He works with data companies to hunt down high net worth households and signs them up. Luxury advertisers like the guaranteed reader demographic and distribution. This model, Binn says, has produced a growth rate of 20% a year. To keep buzz going, Niche Media throws more than 500 C and B scene events a year.
Here's your New York dish.
And part of his job is rubbing shoulders with the right people. Some of them, like Harvey Weinstein, have become investors.
I'm feeling really good.
Over the years, he has built a regional luxury magazine empire that includes LA Confidential, Capital File, and Philly Style. After the 2007 merger with Greenspun Media Group and Ocean Drive Media Group, the combined company publishes 16 magazines with an annual distribution of more than 6 million copies and a reported annual revenue of more than $180 million. At a time when the rich are not getting richer at the same rate they used to, it seems there's still a market for those who aspire.
And Jason Binn with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's talk just a little bit about the beginning. How did you get into the publishing industry? I mean, where did you start?
I just pretty much moved down to Miami, roughly 1992. Very challenging time. It was a couple of weeks after Hurricane Andrew. And, co-founded this magazine, had a partner. And
with Jerry Powers,
yes,
right?
Yes, Jerry Powers. And we just started this magazine called Ocean Drive. It was like the heart of South Florida. And it was a great experience. And as the market grew, the magazine grew. And it was a great feeding frenzy. And as the magazine grew, South Florida grew.
So, and there was pretty small overhead costs. Let's talk about like kind of the start there. I mean, what were your overhead costs? Was it just the two of you working on it? How many people did you have? We just basically moved down there, had very little money in the bank. It was just a scrappy business, It was just getting out there, creating a category called, regional free magazines, where they actually look like national magazines, and the format, it reads and feels like a national magazine, but it's a local magazine, and it celebrates the people and the places within that community. So we just went down there and really focused more on the local business owners. Mm-hmm. And over the few years, the national players started saying, wow, this is a very important vehicle to drive and brand our business. Now, Jerry Powers kind of became like a mentor to you, correct?
Well, Jerry, it was great because he had a lot of the business savvy, and I was, great to, at the marketing and branding, selling. So together we both really fed off each other and created a great business that was pretty much breaking even from day one.
So at what point did you decide, I'm going to start my own business?
We stayed partners throughout the entire roughly 15 years till the Greenspuns came in and purchased pretty much, the company. But roughly after 5 years,
you started Niche Media.
I started Niche Media, and since then I did Hamptons, and then moved into New York with Gotham magazine, and then that just kept expanding, going into markets like LA with LA Confidential and Aspen Peak, and pretty much we've consistently launched a magazine, that being the combined company, every year.
How did that deal with Greenspan Media Group kind of come about? When did those talks start? I mean, the media kind of played it as a feud between several niche magazines, including your partners.
Yeah, well, there was two separate companies, and the Greenspans were our partners in Vegas. So they're an incredible family, incredible people, and they were trying to figure a way to put all the companies together, which was their...
Why then? Why then?
I think they enjoyed, they believed in the model being very city-specific. They're very media-savvy people. They've been in the media business for, as you know, many years. Back, from even their father in the newspaper business, and they want to, I guess, branch out and expand their media horizons.
And what did you learn from that experience? What was kind of the selling
What was great is because when you're a business and you're in a small owner-operator business that's really aggressively expanding, in order to keep expanding and building your brand, building your revenues, building your staffing, you need to build the sophistication of the people you work with. And that's what we've done with the Greenspans.
And we're going to talk more with Jason Binn, founder of Niche Media. We'll be right back. You're watching Venture. Welcome back to Venture. I'm Chris Valerio. We're talking with Jason Binn, founder of Niche Media. You may know some of the names of the magazines. Our audience certainly probably knows. Name a few of the names. Gotham. We have Ocean Drive.
We have, whether it's Boston Common or Philadelphia Style. Hamptons, Capitol File in Washington,
Let's talk
Vegas.
a little bit about this business model, because it's an interesting business model. So you have 16 magazines,
yes.
correct? The circulation, not that big. I mean, it's a pretty small niche circulation. Niche. Household incomes are targeted of more than $250,000. You have to have more than $1 million in liquid assets. That's pretty hard right now. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But where did you come up with the model? Why did you decide this was going to be the model you were going to use?
To be an active consumer, the typical traditional magazine or newspaper format is very much driven by newsstands and subscriptions. What we did was we reversed the model. And newsstands and subscriptions are actually the smallest part of our distribution model. And the bigger part of our model is putting our magazines in the hands of the people that not just make the money, they live in the money, and they have the money.
The buying power, essentially.
Yes. Real active consumers. As we all know, you can target someone with $1 million home, but maybe they don't, have an active job at that time, or they don't have, enough, a lot of money in the bank, and they're, trying to save their money so they can do other things.
So you work with data bureaus, right?
Yes, we work with companies like Experian or Claritas, companies that, the magazine industry actually works with when they get their subscriptions and they want to know who are the people, what is the demographic, the DNA of those individuals subscribing to the magazine. They rely on these kind of companies to tell them what their household income is or what their household value is.
And you use it for the opposite. You go to them and say, this is who we want.
Perfect. Exactly.
And so what is that relationship like? You guys pay them a monthly fee? I mean, how did that relationship start up? Were other people using that for that relationship?
No, not that I know of. It was interesting. The magazine in the beginning stages was pretty much directly free on the street. As the business model got more sophisticated, as the business got more sophisticated, as the advertisers got more sophisticated, we also wanted to be more responsible as well and be more sophisticated. And what we did was we created a direct mail program and figured out, could we go to, multiple listing services, MLS, to find out who has $1 million home, but maybe they bought the home for $100,000. And the home now is worth $1 million, or maybe it's, you just
find
never
out
know.
Really behind the actual.
Yeah. So the three filters that we have learned that are the filters that you can do that are most credible are household income, which, as you were saying, was $250 up, $1 million or more in the bank, and their homes are valued over $1 million.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that advertising that you mentioned. So, how much of the magazines are actual advertising? I read 60%, but is that still about correct?
It's roughly, no, I mean, it's give or take 50 to 55%, on average, sometimes 60, but, on average, we like to create a nice, equal balance between advertising and editorial.
So how do you sell those ads? Are they national packages? Do you localize them for specific local businesses or luxury brands that are working in those areas, or how does that work?
Good question. We kind of do two things. We rely on the local store managers and the local businesses, what we call owner-operator businesses, or businesses that, you know, have one or two freestanding stores. But then we also might deal with a luxury brand that has a freestanding retail, you know, boutique in a market, but they rely on national out of New York or whatever city it may be to leverage that buy. Sometimes we go the reverse, and we're going to the New York agencies and or the client, which we're pretty much very much a client buy.
What kind of prices are we charging here? I mean, what kind of markup are you seeing for advertising space in a regional niche magazine that's not Vogue, that's not one of these big...
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing in our business called cost per thousands. It's called CPM. How much do I need to spend to reach 1,000 people? For us, CPM is cost per mind, because we're really ensuring the fact that all of our content's city-specific. So we're speaking directly, you know, we're not speaking at them, we're speaking with them. So it's all local content. The distribution's very targeted. Besides the direct mail, we're in all the planes that are coming in and out, the private planes. We're in all the right restaurants, all the right boutiques.
So distribution's a really big part of it.
Oh, my God. In major cities, we're in around over 40 hotel rooms. And
you have a relationship with Wynn Resorts, is that correct?
Sure.
Is that supplying those magazines?
Yeah, so sometimes we've done custom publishing projects like that where we create this world win.
Jason Binn. We'll be right back, founder of Niche Media. Stay with us. You're watching Venture. Welcome back to Venture. I'm Chris Valerio. Today we're joined by Jason Binn, the founder of Niche Media, and we were just talking about advertising. And I have to talk just about kind of the environment that we're in right now, because it is not a very friendly environment to magazines in general. Now, you are a niche media, so I realize it's different, but let's run through some of the statistics, because magazine advertising down 26% in the first quarter of this year. People estimating that it's going to fall 11% this year. You have luxury brands like Burberry, for instance, posted a $7 million loss. CEO actually came out and said that it's the most challenging years the luxury sector has ever seen. So how have you seen your advertising revenues fall?
Yeah, I mean, we are working harder than we've ever had to work before. It is not just about...
To maintain or to get new advertising?
You know, it's interesting. It's about maintaining, but it's also about finding new advertising. You know, when you look at, though, there's so much advertising out there as it is. You know, I think every media company should be and could be more responsible as prospecting. You look at billboards, you look at telephone booths, you look at the buses, you look at newspapers and magazines. There's so much prospects out there. We do our best to prospect as much as we can.
What percentage would you say that your advertising has kind of fallen off this year?
We're tracking, you know, it's funny, in some ways we're tracking down roughly around 15%, 10-15%, but in other ways we're also filling out a lot more RFPs, you know, requests for positioning, or, you know, these proposals. They're still hungry to advertise, because if you're not visible, you're invisible, and that's just a reality. And we are these local magazines that are really targeted to a certain consumer in a certain market. Are we good for the mass brands that want to touch millions of people? No. That's not what we ever wanted to be.
One of the decisions you guys made last year was to kind of increase the frequency of some of these. I know the Capital File, Philadelphia Style, Boston Common increased from 6 to 8 issues a year. You had LA Confidential expand from 8 to 10. Do you regret that decision now, given the environment that we're in and the fact that advertising's falling off?
We made a lot of expansion plans since the Greenspuns purchased the company, and part of it was about building a company. You know, their philosophy was, where do we as a company need to be or want to be in 5 years? So this was never, for the Greenspuns and the people behind the Greenspun family, the operators, it was a short-term plan. It was about thinking about 5 years down the road. So they actually, after the purchase, reinvested millions of dollars and wanted to create a foundation that could.
Are those 5-year plans, you think, still feasible for niche media?
I think to do a 12-month plan today is about as far. In the old days, old days being a couple of years ago. You buy a company, you'd say, give me a 3 or 5 year plan, and typically, since I've been publishing over the last 16 years, you could really, to some extent, stay within a 5 or 15% margin, or to your budgets. I mean, today,
but it's a whole different environment.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. I mean,
Have your targeting demographics changed? I mean, have you guys considering lowering? I don't want to say lowering the standards, but lowering the actual liquidity rate that you're looking at people.
And it's something that we're such a niche. Our circulations, while we might be one of the most the largest book in most of these markets, distribution-wise, and we're putting 60,000 copies or whatever you have every month in that market, speaking to those people.
How do you afford that, though? How much does it cost to put out these big, glossy magazines and then get it, deliver it? How much does it cost for one magazine?
Could cost anywhere between $2 and $3 between everything when you wrap it all together. Just basic hard cost, and then you do the marketing.
So you're going to stick to that model?
Well, it's the model that I believe now more than ever is much more efficient and effective for the advertisers, because they're trying to touch their advertisers now more than ever and connect with them.
Jason Binn, founder of Niche Media. You're watching Venture. We're going to talk a little more about that when we get back. You're watching Venture. Welcome back to Venture. I'm Chris Valerio. We're with Jason Binn today, founder of Niche Media. We were just talking about advertising rates, and I just want to talk about growth rates, because in 2006, your growth rate was 20%. 2007, it was 10%. A lot of that came in the second half of the year, according to reports. How did that happen? How did that work out? I mean, that was when the financial crisis kind of...
I just think that people just really wanted to, like I was saying earlier, get more integrated with not just the communities, but the consumers.
What's your growth rate for this year so far?
This year, right now, it's about preserving and what we have. We were fortunate enough to last year launch Michigan Avenue as the crisis was coming.
That was interesting. You launched that because of the Obama campaign, right? It raised a lot of, well, it raised awareness kind of Chicago's.
Actually, Chicago was, the concept came about prior to, but Chicago is a top 3 or 4 market by the U.S. Census Bureau. We had to be there. And we were able to also secure the purchase of Philadelphia style. So at this time you couldn't do that. So we have these footprints that we have in these other markets. And when we launched Michigan Avenue back in September in the fall and holiday, it was actually one of our most successful launches we ever had. So while you might think sometimes the markets are challenging, or the world is challenging, sometimes if you find the right need or the right voice in a community or a market to an advertiser or a reader, they'll find a way to embrace it.
A large part of what your company does is throwing parties to a certain extent. You guys throw more than 500 parties, I believe, or events, I should say, a year. Why did you decide to incorporate that into the business plan, and what percentage of your budget does that take up?
It's a vertical integration. It starts with having the best people in every community, the smartest tastemakers, influencers writing for you, sending it to the best people in the marketplace, the best people to maybe buy some of these products or services, and doing it through a quantifiable, qualified, research. The next step is taking the people that are in the pages and creating these events that bring it to life.
Using them, essentially, to...
Well, it's just showing you the credibility, you being the advertiser or a reader, the credibility of the product.
So
and then these people come to these events, and it brings it to life, and then the media chronicles what you do. And that's kind of like being a responsible publisher and being responsible to our advertisers, creating this full vertical integration with the best tastemakers, the most important people in each community that are inspiring and motivating the way people dress and act and how they style themselves, and that's the model. So the events are a offspring of the foundation that we've created.
What's your favorite part of your job?
Bringing it to life, the whole product, where you can see it, feel it, touch it, and we celebrate people and places. And knowing,
some people say it's kind of like high school with money or a yearbook. Would you agree with that?
It's It makes people feel good. It's it's about celebrating. There's so much going on today in the world that it's a great escape.
And making money through it. There's an entrepreneur for you, Jason Binn, founder of Niche Media. Join us next week for more on Venture. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Krista Valeria. Thanks for watching.